the sexual history and the family history of the African American experience is unique because of that process, which means that the average African American genome is very distinct from the African genomes from which they were taken. Which means that the average African American genome is very distinct from the African genomes from which they were taken.
Got a real small shipment of books. I might give them away to somebody. Now I just got pinged just now, but I had my like my little Freedman shirt that I designed, and I was picking up an order from somebody, man. No, I got my little Amazon box behind me, but the little dude, he kept staring. Oh, this is another one. Yeah, he kept staring. It keeps popping off. You see, man, I don't go for the lower blow. They wanted me to take some pics of some shelves or something. I said, let me wait for a better deal. And then I pop right up, like, oh, just pick this up real quick for 3 times the price. Yeah, no, I'm not doing none of that. I'm a smart man, y'all. I didn't get to where I needed to be by being stupid. I need to do what I was already. I was having a I was picking up at a site, and this little dude, he kept looking at my Foundational Freedman shirt, and he just kept staring at it and staring at it and staring at it. And I'm like, man, I wish I had like a little mini shirt or something like that. I'm about to have to order some small ones, or I'm going to have to figure out how to make it to where it's a decent price where I could pay like 10 to 12. Because some of the ones you give out some stuff for promotion. So, I'm gonna get them together in the next couple months or whatnot. But I got another project coming before that. So the little dude just kept looking at it, and his pops was in the line with him. And he kind of goes off, and I say, hey, what's up, brother? How you doing? And I said, man, your son he kept looking at this shirt. He said, yeah, man. He said that shirt's correct. You know what I'm saying? That shirt's accurate, bro. You know what I'm saying? He said, man, they gonna learn their history. They don't
areas.
My parents, my grandmother, and as well as my mother and their family, they migrated from South Carolina here to Jacksonville, Florida. And when they came on this side of town. When my dad came, he came from Georgia. When he came, he did not live over here in the Mixontown area. He lived on the east side, and that's where I go to church today, still on the east side. And he got a job working at Domestic Laundry, and that's what pulled him from the east side over here to where Domestic Laundry is located.
So that's interesting, because what I'm seeing is, after interviewing some folks in South Carolina, is they were coming to Jacksonville so they could get away from doing agricultural work. Mm-hmm. So it looks like there was more industrious work here in Jacksonville, right. Mm-hmm. which brought folks down from those rural areas in South Carolina.
When my family came, in fact, I was born 2 streets over on Run Street. I was the only one that was born. My mama had 10 children, so I'm the only one born there in 42. But when my family came, they came for a better life here. Mm-hmm. My family came from Blackshear, Georgia, and they came here for a better life. And my daddy got a job at the shipyard. Mm-hmm. And very few people, worked at the shipyard at that time. But my daddy got a job at the shipyard. And they came, like I say, from Blackshear to Jacksonville and moved all in this area. I never lived in this area, but might as well, because my sister, Celestine Harris, mm-hmm. she lived in this area, and I lived with her all of the time. But it came for a better life in Jacksonville. And they got a better life than Blackshear, because you had to run from everybody in Jacksonville, in Blackshear, Georgia, because my uncle, they had to run for their lives a lot during that time.
And what was the reason in why they were running?
Running because okay, but they were running because the other people, the white people at that time, would kill them or hang them for anything, mm-hmm. for any little thing. And my Uncle Archie, mm-hmm. Lorene's husband, he had to run for his life because they was ready to kill him for doing something that I don't know whether he did or not, but they were hanging you and killing you all during that time.
Yeah, and I've interviewed, many people who've unfortunately.
I don't know, so he was asking about the 1768, so I was kind of breaking that down to him. I said, a lot of us been here before the United States was created. We didn't just get imported right after the United States was created. We were here before the actual foundation of the United States of America. 1768, my oldest ancestor that we can trace, and it was probably way before that. But she was the eldest and she lived up to 122 years. She couldn't read and write. But that's on my mom's side. Well, I ain't even gotten to my dad's side. Who knows how far I can go back with that? I don't know. But her people were, her people were sold. Yeah, Nigerians sold her mom and dad. We don't know her mom and dad's name. So yeah, we are native to the land in that regard. People will say that, oh, that's pretendian or whatever. No, we were. That's a new nigga. You've been stripped of everything else. You starting off fresh from then. Yeah, you starting off fresh from then. Can't nobody claim your history from that. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, you had Africans that made deals with the Europeans and sold their folks across the seas. So you're done. You don't get to collect after that. We don't get to go in the dope game and then I get to sell a brick and then the dude that sold the brick to me, I sell the brick and then I get caught. And then the person that I bought the bricks from turns me into the police. I can't come back to you and say, hey, well, that was I sold that to the wrong person. I need you to bring the big brick back. No. You stay in jail. You do that life sentence. You turn state witness and you signed up with the oppressor class. So you get to do the life sentence. And you can't say, well, I didn't know. Well, you still get to do the life sentence. The judge will tell you that, hey, you signed the deal. You sold the brick.
Slavery was big business. Africans sold other Africans to the Europeans. We can only begin to imagine the sheer horror of the slave trade. Yep.
How do you think he was captured?
Probably through a war. There were African middlemen, and they would fight wars with other Africans to enslave them to sell to the white man. Slavery was a huge business for different African kingdoms. The story that we got when we were kids that your ancestor was out on one Sunday with his girlfriend and some white man jumps out of the bush and throws a net over him? It's not how it happened. Slavery was big business. Africans sold other Africans to the Europeans.
So after he was snatched from Africa, came over on a slave ship, on that long boat ride.
From hell.
Yes.
Discoveries like this make me even more eager.
That's how you got to look at that. You can't come back and claim the brick 400 years later. You can't do that, because you know what? If it would have been the same way, if we would have did the same thing, that people would say the same thing about us. Like, oh no, you don't get to commit an atrocious crime and say, well, you didn't know about it and you weren't knowledgeable about it, but you still signed the deal. And then, yeah, the same thing. If we would have did the same thing, they would have did the same thing to us. They would have been like, nah, nigga, you ain't getting no reparations off of that. You're not getting that. That's no. And another thing I seen was a video. And saying to disparage nobody, man, we're talking about historical facts. Further disrespect of the Juneteenth thing that I saw in Ghana, which I thought was really sickening, was not only did they not have the colors, there was no food that was representative of the food that we ate around those times. There was nothing culturally about Juneteenth over there. On top of the fact, there was a key element. You have to include the so-called red indigenous population. You have to also include them, right? Because African American is a mix of what? European, Native American, African, right? New Negro. So Ghana has zero connection with the Native American tribes. Absolutely none. So when you kind of look down in New Orleans and you see them do the Super Sunday, no. Y'all don't get to claim that. That has nothing to do with Africa whatsoever. Nothing. That's all so-called red Native American tribes, right?
Slave. I was never a slave. I don't know how slaves cook. I was never a slave. I know where my grandfather came from, my great-grandfather, and where all their ass came from. Your ass don't even know. You one of them listen. African side they see is
came over to England to help after the First World War. So, you know, they came over the 40s and 50s and 60s. They came. That colonialism, they brainwashed Caribbeans, Jamaicans, and didn't even know that they were descended from Africans. Right. I went to
Americans. They don't know where they're from, you know.
Go in the comments and tell me, am I wrong? Do they do? Is there any Super Sundays in Ghana? Do they do any type of Super Sundays in Ghana? Well, y'all was colonized. Okay, everybody was colonized. Y'all was colonized. Y'all lost. Hey, we'll be fine and lost. We'll be just fine and lost. We'll be a dirty black American. I'm going to be as dirty as I possibly can. So now when you need some help now, just remember how dirty I am.
Just another Sunday of my neighborhood. Do that.
The second line is